I'd now like to introduce you to our next conversation between Lyndon Rive and Nancy Pfund. Lyndon is the co-founder and CEO of SolarCity, America's largest solar provider. Since starting the company in 2006, he has grown the company from just 2 employees to over 6,000 and helped it become one of the most recognized brands in clean energy. Prior to SolarCity, Lyndon founded Everdream, an industry leader in software and services for large-scale distributed computer management. Joining Lyndon is Nancy Pfund, founder and managing partner of DBL Ventures, an venture capital firm whose goal is to combine top-tier financial returns with meaningful social, economic, and environmental returns. DBL has helped to reveal the power of venture capital to promote social change and environmental improvement. Please join me in welcoming both of them to the stage for this next conversation. Hey, Nancy,
Sarah.
thank you. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much.
Is this my clicker?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and we're going to get right into a conversation about the business of solar and its ability to create great returns and create jobs, as well as address the big problem of our age, climate change. And I know we're sitting, Lyndon, we're in a room here with so many amazing scientists and engineers with creating great ideas for our future and products and services. We're not engineers and scientists, the two of us, and yet I know that my secret to clean tech investing is just to back people like you that can figure out how to blend technical innovation with installation and financing and all of the things that make a good business. Well, what's your secret? How do you pull all of that together in a company like SolarCity?
I think it changes depending on the age of the company. So if you are in early startup mode, to me, one of the key things is if you have an idea, follow through on that idea. When you pitch your idea to your friends, it's a high probability your friends will say it's not a good idea. Just as a reference, a high probability that they say, I don't think so. When we got started, I pitched the idea to a bunch of friends, and they would go like, why you want to get into the solar installation business? That's labor. It's crazy. Why would you want to do that? There's no value in doing that. You should just manufacture the panels. This is back in 2006. So that's phase one. If you have an idea, follow through on it. Then as you now follow through on it, you prove out the model. Then, as Nancy mentioned, see bets on the person. The same thing applies to you, the founder of the company. Your success of the company is 100% tied to the people you hire. It is, the success of any company is actually tied 100% to the people you hire. So invest a lot of time in hiring the right people, support them, empower them, and if you have an amazing team, you can really grow a company to be a successful company.
And that you have. Well, speaking of manufacturing panels, lots of people were surprised by what SolarCity did several months ago now, acquiring a company called Solevo, which is in the panel manufacturing business, because SolarCity, as Lyndon just mentioned, is known for innovation and financing and installation and such. And so a hardware investment was a little bit of against the grain, and yet we're so grateful to Governor Cuomo and his team up in New York State. We're building this immense factory up in our first factory in Buffalo. So tell us a little about the rationale for this, and is this, are hardware improvements a big part of your cost reduction strategy, and kind of where do you see it going from here?
Yes, so we were looking at the panel industry, and we weren't really seeing big investments into what I call Generation 2 solar modules. Generation 2 solar modules is high efficiency at low cost. Most of the investment is taking Generation 1, which is essentially lower efficiency at low cost, and reducing that cost further. Today, the average selling price for a solar module is around 70 cents a watt. That has come down significantly. I mean, it used to be $3.50 a watt, so it's down to 70 cents. But over time, we can see that coming down to probably about 60, maybe 55 cents. This is not the cost, this is the price. But in order to really move the needle, if you drop it down 10 cents, it only has a 10 cents effect on the total system cost. It's not enough. So in order to really change it, you have to have generation 2, which requires a big capital investment. Like the all-in, you're going to be spending $700 million, maybe even up to $1 billion, depending on the size of the factory that you want to create. And then you step back, who's doing that? Who's going to be able to create generation 2, which is high efficiency and at low cost? And so we just weren't seeing that. Combined with, I do think we're going to hit this tipping point where, and we're getting close to it, where all new energy is going to flock towards solar, and then the existing capacity in the world won't be able to meet it. And but that's secondary to the first point of getting high efficiency at low cost, because then that has a full balance of system effect, where you can either install more panels on the customer's, more electricity on the customer's roof with the same amount of panels, or you just install less panels. And that actually reduces your labor cost, that you can actually do some innovative stuff to make the systems look better. By making the modules, you can also change the shape of the modules, come up with triangular modules, and just overall make the aesthetics better too.
Well, I think we're all very excited at the prospect of Made in America applying to solar panels, because obviously we've been through quite a journey here over the past several years, and that wasn't always the mantra that people had in mind. And looking at panel manufacturing as well as the growth engine of the solar industry right now, one of the most politically interesting parts of the equation is the job creation aspect. I mean, it's wonderful for our society, for our economy, but it really, as we head into another presidential cycle, I think we're going to be really positioning solar in a different way. Now, the Solar Foundation came out a few weeks ago saying there are over 174,000 solar jobs in our country. I just want to put up a chart that I did for a group up in Sacramento a few weeks ago, and what it shows is just some companies that were started around the same time as SolarCity in our region and in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and great companies, obviously, Twitter, Dropbox, and such. But what we were showing in this speech was just look at the job growth over the same period of time of these startup companies, and you'll see that SolarCity, sort of indicative of the solar industry, really over the past year or so has outpaced the more software, social media types of companies, and that's because you're installing stuff. You're making and installing stuff, and so you really do need to hire folks. So let's get into what really you see as the importance of that and the future of that, and does that, do you think, change the way that the industry will be perceived in this next round of laser-focused attention to clean energy and America's future?
Yeah, I think absolutely will change. Solar's had this stigma that it's expensive, it's a little niche thing, and it may not really get to scale. That's all changed. It is now very cost effective to install solar. In fact, if you install solar, you pay less for the solar energy than you pay from the utility, so it actually costs you less. Its growth, job growth is phenomenal. That slide's a little outdated. We actually, over 9,000 employees, we add about 300 a month is our current growth rate. The other great thing about the solar sector is that the job growth is not concentrated. When you normally have industries, you have hubs. The Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area is essentially a technology hub. It creates a lot of technology jobs. Southern California is its entertainment hub. New York, financial hub. But with solar, the jobs are super local, into the local community. So we have 60 warehouses out in 15 different states. So those jobs are scattered across 15 different states. The solar industry in California now employs more people than the big three utilities combined. So the tide's definitely changing from us being just a little niche thing to truly our future energy source. And I think people are starting to recognize that.
Yeah, that statistic that the solar industry in California has more employees than SoCalEd, Sempra, and PG&E combined. I mean, just a lot of people don't know that, and that is an indicator of our future in terms of the demographics of the electricity workforce. Well, so speaking of utilities, Lyndon, there's a very obvious role for utilities and solar to work together going forward, but there's also been some tension, as there is in any industry that is going through an innovation cycle. We see it all the time. So just on a kind of basic level, tell us what you think about utilities. Love, hate, both?
It depends on the utility. Some, lots of love, some, a little hatred. But if you look at the actual business model itself, the bad behaviors that we are seeing in the market, it's kind of expected. So today, when you are a utility, you are the monopoly. For the last, depending on the age of the utility, call it 50 to 100 years, you've done a thing a certain way. You've never had competition. With the number one cause of innovation in the world is competition. If no one had competition, the products would suck, I can tell you that. So with no competition, there's been no innovation in the electrical space. Now you get into a point where there is competition, there is change, and the utilities actually came out with this paper called the death spiral, meaning that if everybody goes solar, who's going to pay for the infrastructure? Highly over-dramatized. I mean, it's just, there is no death spiral. And what I always like to say is there's a change that's occurring, and to somebody who's never seen a change in 100 years, a change may look like death, but it's not death, it's just a change spiral. But the actual fact is that policy today and the challenge that the utility faces, there is no cost shift, but there is a revenue loss. So to install solar onto the grid, it does not cost the utility anything. In fact, it actually provides benefits. And all these studies done, independent studies done, not by the solar industry, not by the utilities, but all the studies done, shows that there is no cost to the grid. In fact, there's a slight benefit. But there is a revenue loss. So it's not a cost shift, it's a revenue shift. And the challenge is, the way the policy works is the utility can only make money if they deploy assets, infrastructure. And that's where the friction occurs. Because currently, in California, as an example, last year, the solar industry deployed $3 billion into the infrastructure, and the utilities deployed $5 billion into the infrastructure last year. So the solar industry is catching up. That $3 billion is something that they could have deployed. And so that's why there's this natural tension. The way to overcome that tension and actually get utilities in favor of that is to change policy to allow the utility to make money off other infrastructure services. Today, the utility, if they subscribe to a service, and let's say the service is demand management or voltage control, it's a pass-through cost. They can't make any money on it. And so, but if they deployed the capital themselves, then they can make money on it. And so that, I think, is the challenge. If we can change that aspect of it, then utility would be indifferent who's building out the infrastructure. And then the collaboration, I think, will increase significantly versus the friction that's there, which is expected based on the current business models.
Well, and in fact, your brother, Pete, who's co-founder and CTO for SolarCity, just did a blog yesterday on that concept of rate-basing infrastructure as a service, and so that might be a path forward. Pete also wrote a blog several months ago that basically said that storage may be that part of our energy future where utilities and the solar industry can really collaborate and work together in very meaningful ways. Do you see that as part of the...
So this is something that is very clear. If you put the utility engineers and the solar engineers in a room, it won't even take long and they will solve all the problems. Guaranteed. This is actually an easy problem to solve. Actually, solar combined storage has so many features for the grid that they can use. The challenge is not it's not a technology challenge. The challenge is the business model challenges. And so then as soon as you include the business people, then there's friction. And so you got to change the way the utility makes money and allow the utility to make money off services. And then that friction will go away.
So you do see that as part of the utility
Absolutely.
going forward.
The combination of solar with storage will provide a far more stable grid. It'll be impossible to take down the grid. Because right now, if you take down the grid, you can just focus on one substation, and it will take down the grid for a fairly large area. If you have a highly distributed grid infrastructure, it'll be able to handle major weather conditions and attacks.
Absolutely. Well, so since we are in Washington, D.C., it seems very appropriate to talk for a few minutes about the ITC. Of course, we're all focused on that and the renewal discussion that's already beginning, and certainly President Obama mentioning that he wanted to make it permanent in the budget. It was very, very well received among a lot of people here. And I know that you strongly believe, as do many people in this room, that the ITC is, peanuts compared to some of the support that the fossil fuel industry receives. And yet you have managed, even with the support, to drive down your costs, 16% a year. I have a chart here over the past couple of years. And that's, just footnote, that's an amazing accomplishment. 16%, not from 2012 till now, but on an annualized basis. So how do you keep the pressure on to level the playing field in terms of the ITC continuing when you are actually demonstrating that you're reducing your costs and solar is getting cheaper?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the way the incentive works for solar is it's a 30% tax credit, and that actually goes to the customer. And so everyone knows what the solar tax incentives are. Just a show of hands, do you know what the fossil fuel tax incentives are? No, I have it on my phone actually. There's over 13 different tax incentives. And they are therefore in perpetuity, so there's no expiration date.
In the tax code?
In the tax code. In fact, it's been there so long. When I have discussions with other oil and gas, fossil fuel executives, they don't understand that it's a tax incentive. It's the answer is, no, that's the way we account for fossil fuel. Well, that's a tax incentive. You get 100% of depreciation. That's a tax incentive. You have access to MLPs. That's a tax incentive. It wouldn't be in the tax code if 13 different sections if it wasn't an incentive. So all energy is highly incentivized. And so the idea that the energy that is actually going to solve one of the world's biggest problems loses a tax incentive, to me is mind-blowing. Like, you have an energy solution that can actually solve a lot of the climate issues that we are facing. And it has to now compete against fossil fuel that has massive incentives. And by no means am I saying take away the fossil fuel incentives. No, keep them there. They're fine. It helps everybody. Just leave the solar incentives alone. And in those incentives with fossil fuel, none of the external costs are included either. So all the air pollution, all the water pollution, all the water consumption, none of that's included into the cost of energy today. But then the industry has to face reality. If it doesn't get extended, what do? We have to reduce our cost, but I think it'll be a mistake for the US to allow it to lapse. For those solar companies that aren't able to hit that 250 number, and that's our forecast in 2017, are going to be in significant pain. In fact, a lot of companies will have to close down, as that cost structure is the only cost structure that you can achieve and still have a business that works. We will achieve it, but it's going to be painful for many.
And might compromise some of that great job growth that we're seeing.
Solar will go away in many states. It will only stay around in the higher energy states. The job growth will definitely decline by a healthy margin. Call it by half. I mean, it's going to be dramatic, and then it'll slowly climb, but it's going to be a painful drop, and for no reason. So here's one other thing that I think it's key to understand about the tax credit. About 80% of all solar that is being deployed is either done through a lease or a PPA. So that's the industry trend, where you install the system essentially for free. You just sell the energy, and you sell that energy at a lower rate than you can buy from the utilities. So that's the most of the industry is doing. The tax payment that the federal government gets off those lease payments over the life of the system pays back the ITC with a decent return. So it doesn't actually cost the government anything. It's actually, you could call it an investment, because getting a decent return on their tax credit. So just as a side note.
Well, and that's something that you never read in the news accounts of this incentive, nor do you see the tremendous amount of private capital that has been brought into the industry based on the incentive.
Yeah, exactly. Just our company alone, in order for us to meet our targets this year, we're going to have to deploy about $2.8 billion or so in capital. So it gets to become a big number.
And that's kind of the mark of a good policy, is when it creates jobs, it solves a climate issue, and it leverages huge amounts of private capital. It seems like a good recipe. And one of the consequences of the support of solar and the growth of solar has been that the impact on new generation is now really getting noticed. Last year, one of the big news stories was that solar represents a bigger chunk of total new electricity generation. We've got a chart here that shows from 2009 to 2014 the growth and the percentage of that new capacity. Lyndon, what does this growth trend indicate for overall generation mix over the next decade or so? And does solar eventually become like coal and nuclear and natural gas are today?
So this to me is a mind-blowing chart. So in 2009, the entire solar industry capacity was 2% of all new capacity. Let me step back 1 second. Most people, when they talk about solar, they go, how much capacity is generated by solar in the US today? And it's around 1%. And so you always look at that and go, oh, okay, so it doesn't mean anything. But when you're dealing with a 50-year or sometimes older infrastructure, there's been 50 years of investments made into that infrastructure to compete against a massive legacy infrastructure, and say 1% versus the other 50 years is a mistake. The best way to see what's the latest trend is what percentage of new energy is being deployed by solar. And so this chart here shows that. So new energy, it's like when you see the adoptions of cell phone, it starts off small, and you start seeing all people buying new phones, 30% of them go with cell phones. Same thing with desktops, laptops. you can run that train, and it won't be long before you hit 50, 60%. So for the first time now, solar has overtaken natural gas, coal, every other energy. It's the #1 single energy source of new adoption. It's 30%. It's over 30% in 2014. At that trend, it won't be long before we're 50 or 60%. Even if you hold flat at that point, then it's just a matter of time before you transition the entire infrastructure out. So if we maintain that growth rate, I see us getting the whole infrastructure over within a less than 30-year period. More than 50% of our energy will be from solar.
That's a pretty stunning prediction, and
it's going to happen. Like there's no. It is the lower cost of energy. It uses less water. It's cleaner. It creates energy at the place where it's needed. That growth trajectory will continue.
Well, and up in the hallways at SolarCity, there's an opportunity for employees to write their vision of the solar future, the energy future, and you've got a lot of converts.
So just what will kill that growth trajectory is if the playing field is not equalized. So what will kill that growth trajectory is if the current source of energy, fossil fuel, has massive incentives, and then the solar industry loses incentives, absolutely, then it will plummet. It's hard to compete against something that's highly incentivized and been so for 50 plus years.
Well, a lot of the polling data, though, suggests that the Made in America, the element of choice now in electricity generation is super important to Americans. And so it seems like since we have had this kind of growth and success that it might be hard to derail that. I mean,
when we look at our customers, we often think that the #1 reason for customers going solar is they want to save money on the utility bill. It isn't. Actually, the #1 reason is actually choice. That they want to control their own energy. They want that ownership. And so they like the idea of going solar. They have control on it. They like the fact that it's clean. And then, by the way, you save money. So it's actually the reverse.
Well, as in all things, choice in music and devices and phones, it seems that electricity shouldn't be any exception. So let's take we're running low on time. Let's just take a few minutes. Let's get a little personal here. How do you keep people in SolarCity in it for the long term, working the long hours that you guys work when they see the short term, swings in the stock price, and Elon, who is your largest shareholder, your cousin, one of your biggest fans, I might add, he's so fantastic, and yet he's obviously not a shrinking violet. I mean, how do you navigate through some of those moments?
So let me answer the employee one, and then I'll get it to Elon. So we are fortunate enough that the company itself has a mission. Transforming our energy infrastructure to something that's sustainable. People really are excited about that. With growth, there's tremendous promotion opportunities. We try and create a culture of empowerment, so people really make the decisions in the field versus at headquarters. So we were fortunate in that area, so that keeps people motivated. In terms of Elon, the way I like to describe working with Elon is, who have you seen The Matrix? So Elon is Neo. So he sees the zeros and the ones. And so at a board meeting, as an example, so this is just a story. So he will say, "Watch out, you're going to hit that invisible wall." And we'll be like, "Well, I don't see any wall." "Yeah, no, it's invisible." And so then he'll say, "Turn right." And we'll go, "But right's a pothole. I'm going to hit a pothole if I turn right." And then he'll say, "Well, the pothole is way better than the invisible wall." And so then you just got to know that he has this incredible engineering business mark, like he's just got all-round skills. that just got to know you got to turn right into that pothole and hit that pothole. It's going to hurt. You're going to hit the pothole. But then after you hit the pothole, in your rearview mirror, you see the invisible wall, and you go, wow, that pothole wasn't bad at all compared to what it could have been. So that's the joys of working. He sees things differently, but you just got to take in a blind faith that he's right, and he is.
I can attest to some board meetings where that exact process has been in play, and he's always right.
Yeah, he's good.
So, well, I think we're just about out of time, but it'd be great, Lyndon, for you just to share with all the entrepreneurs and scientists and engineers and policy folks and academics in the room, kind of any last advice in terms of people that want to build successful businesses that make a positive difference in our planet's future.
Yeah. Like, to me, you having passion in your own ideas is the number one. Don't get infected by others that don't see the same passion. But also be realistic in looking at the application of that idea of yours. If it's something that's just going to have a minor change, not sure if that's good enough. Look at something that you believe can have a big impact, that you are filling in a gap that's not there today, even if it's a highly crowded space. So when we got into the solar industry, there were over 2,500 other solar companies doing what we were doing. So it's okay to get into a crowded space. Just have a model that can differentiate you, and then follow through on that. The times of successful businesses, or at least the number of successful businesses, is low. But if you're passionate about it, you have a good idea, and you continue to beat on that drum, even faced with many disappointments along the way, you will come out on top.
Well, I think those are wise words to close by. Have passion in what you do and shoot for the fences and beyond. Let's a round of applause for Lyndon Rive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.